Hello, you're watching World Talks on TVP World. My name is Sascha Fahrbach. German Chancellor Friedrich Merz is in Beijing this week for a three-day visit that includes meetings with President Xi Jinping, Premier Li Qiang, and stops in Hangzhou to visit German industrial facilities. The trip focuses on trade imbalances, supply chain risks, and economic cooperation amid rising global competition. Joining us now to discuss the visit and its impact is Piotr Buras, head of the Warsaw Office, the European Council on Foreign Relations. Good to have you back on TVP World. Welcome.
Good morning. Thank you for inviting.
So I want to begin with trade. This is primarily, in many cases, being viewed as a trade visit from Germany as well. There is a trade imbalance, a trade deficit with China from Germany, about almost 90 billion euros. How much is that going to weigh on the meetings that Chancellor Merz is going to have?
Indeed, I think trade will be the central topic during this visit because Merz is kind of, walking a very tight rope. He needs to address these imbalances. He needs to address especially the origins, the reasons for those imbalances, which are to be located in a particular economic strategy of the Chinese leadership, basically using Chinese overcapacities and flooding Europe and especially Germany with them to the detriment of the Germany's economy. So basically, Merz needs to defend the German economy against this unfair competition from China, but at the same time, big German companies are still present in China. There is still hope that this Chinese market, or cooperation rather, with China is or could be beneficial in some ways to the German business. So basically, he wants to rebalance this relationship with China when it comes to trade, but he has already indicated that Germany would change its approach from a full embrace of economic partnership with China to a more assertive stance.
Mm-hmm. I also want to get your opinion. There's an interesting Chinese proverb that the Chancellor used right before Tuesday night, before he flew out to China. He's there now, but translates into a horse shows its strength not alone, but by pulling the cart together with others. So obviously this is that Chinese zodiac, the year of the horse. How successful do you think that's going to be received by the Chinese? As you said, this rebalancing, how much cooperation will he get out of his visit?
Yeah, I think I'm quite skeptical, to be very honest, about this idea of trying to rescue this economic partnership, if it was a goal of Germany's policy. I think the truth is, and there are lots of analysis already being written about that China has become a major threat to Germany's economic model and economic future. So it used to be a backbone of Germany's economic development in the early 2000s. Now, with this enormous imbalance, it is becoming a threat. And this is not just about economic imbalances. It is about the fact that basically China, with this unfair instruments of trade policy it is using, has become a competitor for Germany in the key areas, key industrial branches like automotive industry, like chemicals, like machinery. And this is really a lethal threat to German economy. And I think there is a realization in Germany that this is the case. And that basically there is no option of continuing basically this current model of cooperation with China. But there is still a lack of courage to draw ultimate conclusions, to basically to to resort to more decisive economic policy steps, and to using leverage of the European single market to a larger extent in order to curb Chinese investments in Europe, in order to limit Chinese imports to Europe, because the fact that basically China is no longer actually an important export market for Germany as it used to be in the past. The export to China is now smaller than to Poland. Is an indicator how profoundly this economic relationship has changed, and that basically continuing it would end badly for Germany.
Mm-hmm. But at the same time, it's curious, though. I mean, we talk about not just the Germans, but also other European leaders criticizing China on unfair trade, yet we've had many visits in the last months. I mean, if we look at back in December of last year, it was Macron in China. You have Keir Starmer was in China in January, Orpo of Finland also January, the Irish head of the Irish government also in January. So how much of this really is about criticizing China? Is there a unified European policy shaping up? Is it something bilateral? What is this? Because, I mean, is this something coordinated?
I think no, it's not really coordinated, but I think that there is a European approach to China shaping up, but very slowly and far too slowly, I think. And all those bilateral visits are not very helpful, to be honest, because those European leaders are trying to forge some bilateral relationships with China or maintain them. But the fact is that these individual countries, even Germany, although it is of course the largest economy, the most important Chinese partner in Europe, are not so relevant, or not, or maybe to put it differently, not strong enough to impress the Chinese leadership, and their means which they can use are certainly not sufficient to defend European interests. So basically, Europe needs to leverage the main strength it has, and this is the European single market, which is extremely important for China. Access to this market is increasingly important because of the weakness of the Chinese economy, because of the very low demand in China, and because of those overcapacities which of the Chinese industry and products the Chinese want to get rid of, want to sell on the international markets, and Europe is the key market for that. So basically, we can leverage access to our market as a major asset in our relationship with China, in order to force Beijing to change its economic policies, industrial policies.
Speaking on forcing, I just want to jump in. I'm just conscious of the time, Piotr. I just want to ask you one last one about forcing a change. I mean, China has not changed its view and policy on Ukraine and Russia. It's often been touted that Beijing could end that war. Do you think that in this visit, in some light, the Chancellor will pressure the Chinese in helping with that?
I don't think he will pressure the Chinese, and because this pressure would be also unlikely to bear fruits, I think. But he will. I'm sure he would address the issue, and he has said it already a couple of times in public, and that marked the change in the German approach. That basically Germany has started voicing criticism about China being an enabler of Russia's war in Ukraine. So I think and hope that this issue will be raised, especially since we are. Just yesterday had the fourth anniversary of the outbreak of the war.
Mm-hmm. And just ultimately, like one sentence about this visit. What do you expect after these 3 days are done?
I think I would expect not a return to business as usual, but a slow transformation of Germany's approach towards a more assertive stance on China, and more support for European or EU level solutions.
All right. So thanks for all those insights. Really appreciate that as we covered here, the German Chancellor's visit in China. That was Piotr Buras there, the head of the Warsaw Office, European Council of Foreign Relations. Thank you. And thank you for watching. That concludes World Talks. But stay right here on TVP World for more news and commentary. Goodbye.